If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and thanks for tuning in to another episode to find out why writers are writing and why you should be writing too. Today, I have a guest that's going to teach us a lot about writing and his process and how research really can help with a novel that you're writing. My guest here is from Western Massachusetts. He was in the Air Force for over 24 years. He's an established musician and writer, and he is the author of the historical mystery thriller called The Old Corsair, which is his newest book that's out, and The Composer's Legacy. This novel, the first novel he wrote, The Composer's Legacy, is about the wealth of an unpublished musician who leaves his inheritance to a professor who must discover why and what to do with the music. And as a writer, we know sometimes we have a story that we're writing and we want to know why and what to do with that story. So today's episode, we are going to talk to Michael DeStefano about exactly how he wrote his book, and we're going to be very entertained. So thanks for joining in to yWrite, and let's talk about the inspiration and discovery and research and the love of storytelling. Welcome, Michael.
Hey.
Hi, nice to see you. This is Michael DeStefano, and we met at Barnes & Noble maybe a year or so ago.
Yes, we did.
At an author event, and I just was drawn over to you. And just the book, The Composer's Legacy.
Yes.
As writers, sometimes we're trying to figure out why we're writing. Is
Correct.
it for our own legacy? Is it for someone else's legacy? So, of course, I see the book, and then I find out what the book is about, and sold, got to buy it and read it. And then I talk to you more about the research you did on this, and welcome to the show, because we're going to talk about it.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that.
So, how long have you been writing?
I have been writing earnestly since 2010.
Okay. And in your career as a musician or a composer,
Right.
When did that begin?
Oh, goodness. I eat, sleep, and drink music. Well, this happened in high school, grade school. I was raised to go ahead and play an accordion with my my parents, and when we went to school, they had to play either the violin or the string instruments or the wind instruments. I started off with the clarinet. I started going, I guess, deeper to bass clarinet. When I went to high school, they had a contrabass. They actually wanted me to play that because they had no one else to play it. So I was...
You play so many instruments.
Anything with a single reed. That means saxophones, clarinets, the entire family.
Wow.
So and I used, and one of the other things is in this book here, which was edited out by my editor because I was getting too wordy, is the main character, David Whaley, was caught by his teacher playing a cornet, and he went, so he knew he was in trouble. He handed him the cornet and the music folder for the dance band.
Oh.
And had him start to learn that. Well, that happened to me.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because my question is, how much in this book has happened to you, whether through experience or through learning? Because you're talking about a man who was writing all this music. I mean, he was writing music, playing the music, and then passes away. And then leaves his whole, collection of written music and, to someone he doesn't even know.
Correct.
I mean, he met this guy one time, and, then he takes on the legacy of trying to make him known by his music and understanding his life and why it was all left to him. But, did someone leave something to you, or what inspired all that?
Actually, what it was is the concept was what would have happened. This was, and I did broad strokes. In the late 80s, I was kind of coming up with the idea maybe I want to write something other than music. And I had this storyline that I could blend the two interests, the music and my compositions and
100% is it blended. I've learned so much about music from reading this book.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And that was another font of useless trivia. I wanted to get it out of my head and put it in something.
And for someone, I mean, I am into music. I can read it a little bit and, things like that. So I could understand it. But for someone who's really into music, they're going to love this story because some of the lingo they're going to understand more than me. There was a lot of times I kind of wanted to find out if it was true.
Yes.
Like, is this really true? Is this a real song?
I went to, like, for instance, there's the battle between, and I'm going to get into too much of the plot here, but there is in research, Bridge on the River Kwai, the main theme.
Yep.
That they're using, the prisoners are whistling. Everyone knows what that is. Da 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 da. Right. That was not written by Sir Malcolm Arnold.
Okay.
He wrote the score for that movie, but he did not write that particular piece. That was written, published was Kenneth J. Alford, who was actually Lieutenant F.J. Ricketts.
Ah.
And he wrote it in 1914. Now, F.J. Ricketts is the British version of John Philip Sousa.
Okay, so this is where, as I'm reading the story and meeting the characters and meeting the musicians along the way and hearing about their songs and the reporters who are writing articles for the paper, I would be like, is this a real person or is this a because it's a work of fiction.
The work of fiction, but all the music that I talk about, you can in the era of YouTube, I love this. You can go ahead and take the name of the composer that I put in there and the piece, and if you want to listen to it, go and YouTube it. Yeah. The music is gorgeous.
Well, and you put together a CD. What did I just do with it? That goes along with the book.
The music CD that is the CD is only available at my book signings.
Okay.
However, if you go to my website, lopsidedbutterflybooks.com or .net. .net. You can actually go to the books that I have available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you can listen. There's a link. You click on the link, and it takes you right to the music. You can hear all 8 pieces I wrote that's on that CD.
So this is like gold because you're talking about composers in the book and their music, and like you said, we can go to YouTube and Google them to find out that they're real. But then you are talking about other music, Wes's music.
Wes music, correct.
And I would say Dr. Wes, Mr. Wes. He wasn't a doctor.
He wasn't a doctor, yeah.
But, he was writing music, and these are his songs. Correct. However, they're written by you. So you are the Wes leaving this composer's legacy. And it's just fascinating. You're like, I'm finding the song of, I can't read right now because I don't have my glasses, but the string, right. You discover his sheet music for the string quartet.
Yep.
And, it's Wes's music, but you've written this and then you've written it's amazing how you bring it all together. And with this, how did you start composing the music? Well, did you do the music before you put it in the book?
Some of it I have actually written. As a matter of fact, the string quintet, the one that is the third one on the CD, which is also, the score is on the cover of the book.
Yes. Oh, let's talk about this book cover.
Uh-oh.
We're really jumping all over the place because there's so cool. So you have the sheet music here.
Correct.
Which is for that song.
That is the string quintet at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. And this thing here is the third movement, which is, it's in 3/4. So it is scherzo, which is really fast. And this thing just nails the idea of, whoa, this is a surprise. What is this? Yeah. The concert mistress happens to find the score on David, the professor's desk, and she's never seen such pristine writing before. It's like Mozart, writing like he was taking dictation. That is the same way this composer was.
And is that the same way that this writer wrote it?
Well, this is the embarrassing, kind of humbling part. The intention was to write what the concept on this story was what would have happened if no one had ever heard of Beethoven and suddenly we discover his music.
Yeah.
That is the intention of the music.
Yeah.
But the more I start writing about this composer, and the more I wrote about him and the music that we expect to get out of him, I'm going, I can't write this. At least I'm not that good.
Well,
I'm hoping. But if you listen
to it, it's good.
If
He's that good.
I paid her $20 to say that. No, if you like the music, I will pass that on to the dead composer, and if you hate it, you can blame me.
I like that. And okay, so the first thing that caught my eye was this wax seal, and I remember opening the book before I read it and understanding that the doctor who inherits it all gets a letter, and the letter is sealed with this wax seal, so no one can open it except for him because it's been willed to him. Right. And I see this and I'm like, what's this little symbol thing? It looks like it's just really cool because I'm like, oh, it must be someone's initials. I was trying to figure that out, and it actually has many meanings, which is so cool because as a writer, I know we put things in our books that sometimes our audience doesn't get or doesn't see. I mean, in my book, April Rain, in the April, the I is actually the number 1.
Right.
So because it happens to coincide with when they're in the autopsy room, there's evidence that's labeled APR-1L. So, it's like something I know, and when you're reading the book, you'll come across that, but will you put it together? You don't know. So here, I don't want to give it away, but I do. I just think it's really cool.
Well, I'll just say this. David looked at that wax seal and said, that thing looks like a lopsided butterfly, thus lopsidedbutterflybooks.net. But my wife thought that thing looked like a fat pair of scissors. And because she said that, I put that as one of the comments from one of the characters. But that's not what it is. Carla Macklin, who is David's foil for most of this, I like strong characters. And Carla Macklin's going to be unique because she is more Mycroft Holmes to David Sherlock. Well,
I was going to say, it is like the Sherlock's Holmes mystery, and she is the right hand of really doing a lot of this research.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the research.
Definitely.
And we're going to kind of bring in your next book too. But, the research, as a musical composer, as a lover of music, I mean, you may or may not have known a lot of these composers, because whether you researched them or not, to put the real composers in here. Not saying that Dr. West is not a real composer, but he's a fictional character based on a real composer. You had to do a lot of research for this in times of timelines and, locations, things like that.
That was the best part about the composer's legacy, is because I didn't have to do a lot of the research because was done. In my time in the military, I was assigned to Okinawa, and there is this record shop called Pianissimo, or the record shop called in
Okinawa.
It was in Okinawa, right? Fukuhara Music Store.
Okay.
And I used to go to this place, the coffee house called Pianissimo, and they play nothing but classical music all day long. And if I heard something I liked but didn't know, I never heard it before, I would take myself over to this place and go upstairs, where in Japan the record albums are not sealed.
Oh.
So you take them out of the plastic slide in the shop, and they'll allow you to take the record and play it over the speakers while you're in there, and you can hear the music that you're intending to buy. Oh, that gave me some work to do. So I would go and I would decide I'm going to get the definitive copy of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, because along with, you go to Walmart or something, you might be lucky to find a symphony. This thing had an entire row of nothing but his symphonies, different orchestras with different year recordings, actually, for just Symphony 1.
Such a different side of Okinawa that I didn't picture. I mean, And you think you're sending someone off to, for the military, and, it's all, I don't know, gross and sweaty and not fun, but that was a beautiful experience.
Oh, it was gorgeous. And aside from learning how to drive on the wrong side of the road, the wrong side of the car, the music was excellent. I was immersed in Okinawan culture. When I was living off base, I was right next to a community center, and every year they would do their Obon festival, Asa festival, and they would be playing the 3-stringed instrument, literally called shamisen, three-stringed instrument. And so it's like a little guitar thing. I learned how to play that, and I would start playing with them.
You really are.
And they'd be looking up at me like, "Oh, there's the crazy guy, Gene." So it's like, oh, that was fun.
So again, the composer's legacy is fiction, but it really is a kind of a memoir of your life in a way too, a little bit. I mean, just your love of music and
that's what I wanted to share. Yes.
Yeah, the discovery of the music you found. I mean, the story itself, is fictional.
But I have 700 record albums, and that was all from. And then, of course, where am I getting the research from? When you open up the record album, they have what's called program notes. If you go to a concert, you have the program. Here's the program. A little bit about.
They don't do a lot of that. I mean, maybe they're starting to a little bit, but
if you go to like a Broadway show,
yes,
they'll have a little bit about the composer, a couple of paragraphs, and then specifically about how that piece was created, how it was composed, why it was composed, all that.
Yeah, I mean, writing a book is a huge undertaking, and the inspiration for a story, can sometimes just arrive, which, you're like, okay, what do I do with it? Let's start. But, you're writing a novel, but you're also writing the music. And so it's just twofold how you're doing this. And then you have the research going in. And this next book, I mean, it wasn't published at the time I saw you, I don't think.
No, you did. Yes, it was. As a matter of fact, that was one of the ones I was trying to get out. But then,
I was like, wait, but I was totally drawn to this.
No worries.
Music, I could hear the music coming from the book. But with this one, you have this notebook. I mean, I'm going to move these a little bit just so we can part the sea to see this. And I know when I was writing April Rain, I have probably like 6 notebooks like this, not in the perfect order that you have, but this is the research you did for the story.
The research is, I was trying to go ahead and write this thing as close to the event as possible.
Yes, and it's a historical mystery.
Yes, it's a historical mystery. And I wanted to put my main character, who is Vernon Cyclops Tunney. He's not Cyclops because he's missing an eye. It's because that eye's, the white portion is almost obliterated by the color portion. And that's on his left eye. But he's also right eye dominant. So because he's right eye dominant, he can tell you're looking at the wrong eye, and that makes him mad.
Ooh.
So yeah, that gets him really upset.
I have a friend with a glass eye, so sometimes he can say, "Which eye are you? Why are you looking me in the eye?" And I go, "I'm looking in your eye."
But I'm looking at I wanted to put him on an actual vessel that was captured by Barbary pirates. So I had to do my research. I started looking at the Betsy, Maria, and the Dolphin were all captured 1784, 1785. I knew some of that, but I needed to do some more research into it. And then it's like, okay, well, I want to go ahead and put him on board. And then I have to go ahead and have him escape from this because Captain Richard O'Brien, the real captain of the Dolphin from Philadelphia. And everyone in the opening chapter here in October of 1785, when my character offers testimony to the Confederation Congress, letting him know what happened because he escaped. Well, no one escaped, except for him. But then, that's the fate. That's the
fictional part. Right.
But the actual part was Captain Richard O'Brien and his crew were held captive by the Dey of Algiers for 12 years. They weren't released until 1796, and their release and in return, I actually have a copy of the newspaper that showed.
Well, this is the important part of doing research, especially when you're doing kind of period pieces.
Yes.
I mean, you're going back 1780s.
Yes.
So to find newspaper clippings and to find photographs and things like that from the 1700s, like sometimes I mean, in my own brain, I think, did they even have newspapers then? Were there presses and things like that? And you have, if we can show a little bit of these things, the actual newspaper clipping.
This particular one I found on Wikipedia.
Yep.
Okay, this one, I Googled it and pulled it on up, and you'll notice Thursday, October 7th, 1756. This is number one. This is the initial inaugural cover, and it's basically an op-ed by Daniel Fowle, who was the publisher at the time, and with freshest advices, foreign and domestic. The printer to the public. And the second paragraph opens, and I could not believe I read this when I first saw it. Fondness of news may be carried to an extreme. Oh, really?
Fondness of news carried to an extreme? That was in the 1700s, and we're in 2024.
And we're still dealing with it.
We're still carrying news to the extreme.
Yes, and we're still dealing with. I saw that and I actually had to laugh.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, the order that you have your research is amazing, but I want to talk about how you find these things. I know when I was doing April Rain, I had to do a lot of research, and even when I did Angel's Journey, I did a little. And going to the library and asking for. I mean, I was looking for things in the 80s. Newspaper. I mean. 1980s, not 1780s. But even then, it's not on the shelf. Like if I'm looking for newspapers from the 1980s, I mean, one of the things in April Rain, I needed to find out who was playing for the Stanley Cup that year. It was just, I wanted to have that authentically in there. So going to the library, I'm like, can I get a newspaper from, this year? And they're not in there. They're on microfiche. And then, 1980 is different than 1780.
Everything is now digital.
Okay.
I went to the Springfield Museum, and in the basement is the Springfield archives.
Yes.
And they were extremely helpful. They sat me in front of a computer and said, going into REDX Genealogy Bank. And
REDIX, REDX.
Yes.
Yep.
And Genealogy Bank and News Bank. They actually have digital copies of colonial era newspapers that you can go into. They're the ones that do survive.
Yeah.
Now, there is a complete list. If you go to the library, they'll actually show you that this particular one, and I talk about that in the book because the characters are doing the exact same thing.
Well, they're doing the research in the book, so you're almost showing
I'm
the research
showing
you're
you,
doing
if you
through those
read
characters.
this book, you will know exactly how I did my research because the characters are doing the exact same thing.
And it's cool. I mean, I write at the Springfield Museum. I'm one of their creative writers, so I have written down in those, I call them the catacombs sometimes, but like the archives that they have and how, you can do the research, and it's open to the public, I mean, it's not like you have to have a special pass. So for people who are looking to write a period piece, I mean, we have all these free, accessible ways to get information that is open to be used. Like, you don't have to ask for permissions. I mean, because you're going back 300 years.
Because this is, it is, but it isn't. Because Genealogy Bank and REDX actually now have these copyrighted for them. So you really can't go in and take
you couldn't publish
directly
this
off
in
of
the
this.
book, but you can get the information.
Correct. But what you can do is you can go to guys like Quentin Carr, who is the publisher's liaison to REDX, and if you want to get permission, you certainly can. He was very accommodating, and the folks over there at REDX, they were amazing. They actually had me help me do stuff like this. I want to be able to tell the people, as I'm looking at this thing, June 26, 1788, the Massachusetts spy, because they used the ligature.
Yeah.
There is your long
Massachusetts looks like two F's.
Yes. And
Massachusetts.
Yep, and that's actually the long S, just like in the Congress, the first S
It's a
is
beautiful
long,
kind of calligraphy type
and that's
writing.
called the Castellan ligature. And I also talk about that at the beginning of the book, so this way here people
it really teaches you history.
Yes.
I mean, and it's real history in a fictitious story.
Correct.
Which is the fictitious story of the real story of doing research.
Correct.
And solving mystery.
Yes. One of the things that I wanted to go ahead and bring up was this right here's your title frame. And then I happen to notice the liberty of the press is essential to the security of freedom. It's not written just in English. It's written in French. It's written in Greek and written in Latin.
In a American newspaper.
That's in an American newspaper. Is Thomas's. And then what the thing with this one is, they appreciated and respected their subscribers. So I mean, today I don't know what they're doing.
Well, our local newspapers, I think, appreciate it.
The
small one, like
the local newspapers are different.
Yes.
For the most part, than the
USA Today or
They
the
drive me
Wall
crazy.
Street Journal, things like that.
But with the crazy, what I love doing the research, I'll run into things like this, and that's why I put it in the book. Everybody knows that Thomas Jefferson said there's nothing more dangerous than a standing army than a national bank. Mm-hmm. He did not like the national bank. Hamilton went at it hammer and tongue between the two of them. But he also did not like a standing army. Well, that's why this shocked me. January 8th, 1788, New Hampshire Spy. American Navy, Mr. Jefferson's opinion on the establishment of a limited American naval force to guard our merchant ships on the high seas, because after the war was over and the Paris Treaty was signed, the French gave up guarding our ships because the war is over. We don't need to do that. So that's when the impressment started happening, England against us, our merchant vessel. They would take our sailors and then impress them to British service. And that's what got him going.
Yeah, because history as we're taught it in school is one way of learning history, but when you're researching it, you're finding stuff that I don't want to say contradicts what we've been taught, but it does in a way, because you're finding out real events that have happened.
Well, the question asked in here is, what happened to the Crescent? The Crescent is the 7th frigate that was created and named, and I have the
What's
War
a frigate?
Department.
What's a frigate?
A frigate is a ship of war.
Okay, vessel, yeah.
Yep.
And he's got all this terminology.
Here we go, right here. I have
handwritten pieces.
Handwritten War Department papers that named the Crescent, when it was named, who named it. Apparently this was Captain Tommy Thompson, who said, because this frigate here is going to be going to the Day of Algiers, I have therefore concluded to name her the Crescent. And then the response back by Josiah Fox, who built the Crescent, that the frigate Crescent of 36 guns built by James Hackett at Portsmouth, New Hampshire, for the Day of Algiers, was launched from the U.S. Navy shipyard the 24th of June, 1797 at 4 o'clock.
This is why writing is so important.
Oh, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like you say, anyone who's even thinking about writing anything, whether it's a recipe or, the to-do list or or like, if you write it down, it doesn't get lost,
Correct.
And because you're finding these old letters, like it's showing that timepiece. Like I know during COVID, my writing groups, we would write about like what's going on in our worlds, then. And we were saying how like these little pieces are going to become time capsules, because in 20 years, 50 years, 200, 500 years, someone looks back on that and it's like you can get a real sense of what happened, you know? And for people who do journal writing, it's really important, to make sure it's dated. And,
Correct.
Like this person saying, oh, the ship was launched, or the vessel, was launched on this day at 4 o'clock. Like all of a sudden you're getting such a specific piece of information. I just get very excited about stuff like that, because it's like, well, no one's just going to make that up and write it down, And it's like to say, oh, this, Thanksgiving I celebrated with, and you're writing all the names of the people that you celebrated.
You want to get goosebumps?
Sure, give me goosebumps. I love getting goosebumps.
John Adams, the series.
Yes.
There's a scene where John Adams and Abigail Adams return from their exile as the British ambassador. And this is after 9 years. They have not seen their kids since they were young. Okay? Now, that scene, as I'm going to look at this right here, the New Hampshire Spy. This is the one. Why came up with June 21st, 1788. That's the day that New Hampshire was the 9th pillar to ratify the Constitution, making it active. So that's why I went with this edition. But then it also reported on June 18th that yesterday, after the absence of 9 years, arrived in this metropolis His Excellency John Adams. To see it reported in the newspaper after watching it, goosebumps.
It's definitely the rabbit's hole that writers go down.
Yes.
I mean, it is a rabbit's hole. As soon as
Yes.
you're like, I'm going to just look up this one thing. And then that one thing leads you to something else, something else. And it's like you start learning things that sometimes you're like, oh, that doesn't need to go in the book. But you needed to know that for whatever reason. I mean, it does kind of in a way procrastinate the writing of a story sometimes.
My editor tried to take it out. I put it back in.
And that is the free license that we have with that. I mean, we've done shows talking about editing. I know the editing process and having to have, an editor to do things like that. So, you've had editors do this, you've proofread it, you've gotten it published, you've put it out, you've won awards with this. You take this to book shows and you're marketing it. I mean, this is all the flip side of after writing it, who the author becomes, because it's, writing a book is incredible, but marketing the book and getting people interested and excited to read it is another whole thing. Both of these books, I mean, they're written so well that they're visual and they appeal to all the senses. Like The Composer's Legacy, I'm just like, this should be a movie.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I'm putting it out there.
Thank you.
Should be a movie because, I mean, it's like this kind of, it's very like romantic, but at the same time, it's discovery.
Yes.
And we all go through those things in life of trying to say, like, why were we put here? And he's like, why did I inherit all of this music? What am I going to do with it? And then you're hearing the music and it's like, just beautiful, and you're seeing the story of what he's doing with it. And for me, I think like a lot of people who are writing were like, why were we given these stories to write? I mean, we're vessels of a story that's coming through us, part of our experience. And, yes, it becomes part of our legacy, but we want those characters to have that legacy. Right. And it's just really well. Kudos to all of that. Congratulations on the awards you've received for them. I know, do they both have their, you get the stickers to put on the book, which, is really nice. And I know.
Actually went to Miami and they went and did the presentation in Miami. So
you
they
did?
invited us to go.
That's so nice.
That was great.
Very exciting. Well, I want to keep talking, and we will keep talking. Yes. We have a great relationship here. Can you tell the audience where they can get these books, how they can get more information about you?
Oh, absolutely. They can get the books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. They can go to their local bookshop. As long as you go ahead and have a title and the author, you can go ahead and have them order it for you. Or you can go to my website, lopsidedbutterflybooks.net/books, and it'll take you right to the books. You can go to the link to Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or directly to either BookBaby for the Old Corsair, or what's the other
Composer's
one?
Legacy.
Composer's Legacy, and that will have page publishing.
All right, and I will put the links below for the YouTube channel. So hopefully, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching on Public Access channel, thank you for watching. And, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, because you can see a lot more episodes like this and meet some really interesting and creative and talented writers on the show. I assume on your website you're going to post when you have book signings and things.
Absolutely.
Because if you go to the book signing, you can get the CD.
As a matter of fact, if you go to the very first, the homepage, it'll have a list of information, and I will have whatever the next book signing is going to be, and a list of some of the places that have already had book signings that you can still get signed copies.
Which, again, is another ingredient of being an author, having to update your website and keep all that running.
Oh yeah.
It can be exhausting, but we balance it well. Michael DeStefano, thank you so much for coming on
Angela,
to yWrite.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank all of you for tuning in to another episode of yWrite. And just like every show, I'm going to give you a writing prompt, because I want you to start writing your stories. So when the show is over, set your timer on your phone, on your microwave, wherever, 5-10 minutes. Just set it and just pick up a pen and start writing. And we talked a lot about research today, and just the fact that we're being detailed with what's going on. So I'm going to kind of give you two prompts. One is to think about like what you did for the last holiday, whether it was Easter or Christmas or Thanksgiving, and write down you know, who was present then, you know, what you had to eat, so that you have that kind of snapshot of the day to remember. But I want you also to think about, like, do you want to go to the library on a little adventure? Maybe write down what you would want to research at the library and then look it up. You know, like go to the library and say, you know, I wonder how they celebrated Easter in 1843. And talk to the librarian and get a hold of some of those archives and just start reading it, because I'm sure it's going to be very interesting to you, and you're going to find out how research can take you down a rabbit's hole to discover something that you didn't even know you needed to know, but it might be something that you can incorporate into your own writing too. So enjoy that writing prompt. Thank you again for tuning into yWrite, and I will see you next time. Thanks.